Okay, here's a video walking through some of the problems and exercises from Chapter 4 and the first part of Chapter 5 in the Albright text. One of the first exercises here in the book is 4.1, Entering a Formula. So I've pulled up the recording macros worksheet on the left. I've got the textbook on the right. And I'm going to follow through what it says here. It says to turn the recorder on, name the range with the numbers monthly costs, then enter the formula at the bottom of the column, and then turn the recorder off. So here we go. I'm going to record, and I'm going to call this, what should I call this? Sum formula macro. I'm going to put it in this workbook. I'm going to click OK. And my recorder is on, so I'm running. So now I'm going to name the range. And I'm going to go to my name manager. And I'm going to click on New. And I'm going to name this monthly costs. For these cells, click OK. And I'm done with that. Now I'm going to go to the bottom and enter the formula equals, where's my equals? Equals sum monthly costs. Whoops. I misspelled it. Monthly costs, which is the named range I just created. And I'll hit enter, and now we'll turn the recorder off. Now I'm going to go into Developer View and look at what was just created. So if I go to my recording macros into Module 1, I can see that this is the recorded macro. In fact, here's my error where I misspelled it. So I can take all of this out that I don't need. I can take the select out. I can take that out. And let's compare this kind of code with what the book is suggesting. So here's a modified code. Here's the recorded code. Notice my recorded code looks pretty close to the book. I've got a range, I've got a select, I've got an active workbook, I've got another select, I've got a set the formula here, I've got a refers to. So the book is inviting us to modify this code so that we can streamline the code. Really, there's two lines of code here that I need in the modified code version. One is the range formula of B2, which is sum monthly costs. Notice in the book, it uses a with statement, and it's instead of typing WS exercise 1 for both of these lines, it encloses both of these lines inside of the with statement. I'm going to ignore the with for now, and I'm just going to come up here and take that B4, B11 range and type in here WS exercise 1 dot. And what I'm doing here is I am copying this WS exercise 1 onto this first line here to create a named range. So instead of select, I'm going to put name, and I'm going to do monthly costs. So that is the line that creates a named range for that range. Notice here I'm using WS exercise 1, which is referring to the code name of the first sheet. It says exercise 1 in the tab, but the code name is WS exercise 1. And I can see that as well in the properties. If I go to the properties window and click on WS exercise 1, the code name here is WS exercise 1, even though the sheet name itself is exercise 1. And again, this is helpful because if you were to go in here, if somebody were to change the name of this tab, then this code would still work because it's referring to the code name, not to the tab name. So that's one of the reasons why we do that. That is the first line here, and that's the named range. The next line that I want to do is simply forming the formula. So let me get rid of some lines here, and let me go ahead and copy the same format as I'm using above. In this case, what's my range going to be? My range is not going to be the entire range as it is above. It's just going to be B12. And I'm going to put in the formula method. It's a method. Actually, it's an attribute of that cell B12 to be equal to sum monthly costs. And that will do it. So I'll go ahead and click on save at this point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase that. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to delete my named range because I want to run this code and have it see if it works. So I'm going to type inside, I'm going to click inside the code, click F5, and sure enough, there it is. So I've created the named range and the sum, and here's the named range. It's back in here from this code after running this code, and it uses the sum of the named range. So that is this first example in the book, exercise 4.1, actually in the chapter, where it asks you to record and then to edit that code and to be a little bit more concise with that code. Okay, the next exercise in the book is exercise 2. And this is on tab 2 of the recording macros file, which again is available on Canvas. This exercise, we're simply summing up column B and column C into a column D. It wants me to turn on the recorder and then copy this formula from D4 down the column and then turn the recorder off. So I'm going to start the recorder, and let's see, I'm going to call this copy paste, and the name I'm getting is from this code down here, so I know that's the name of the macro that they're creating. So just to be consistent, I'll type in copy paste here in my macro name. I'm going to store it in this workbook, and notice it's created in the VBA code, a new macro, and I'm recording at this point. So I'm going to copy this formula down. I'm going to double click on that square. That's going to copy it down, and then I'm going to stop recording. And let's see what it looks like in the book. So here's the recorded code in the book. Copy paste, range D4 select, selection copy, range select, paste, and then copy mode false. So I did mine a little bit differently. This is actually kind of using the mouse and copying and pasting it down. My code is actually a little bit different. Let's modify this code to make it similar to what it has in the book. So just like we did before, I'm going to take this select line out. I'm going to take this select line out. We don't need that. But we do want to do a WS exercise just to get in the pattern of the example here. This is exercise 2 because it's referring to the second sheet. And here we see the code name of exercise 2. I'm going to put a dot after my sheet designation to reference a range. So I'm coming back here. I'm going to do WS exercise 2 dot range. There's that dot. So I'm going to type in range, open parentheses, quote D4, quote, close parentheses, dot, copy. And at this point, I'm following the notation of the book here. And then there's my destination word. So I'm going to erase some code here, this selection autofill, because I don't have to worry about that because I'm actually referencing a range to copy from. But I do still need the destination. So it says destination : equals, and it's going to refer to a range. Notice there's a dot there. Excuse me. The reason why there's a dot there is because in the text, we're still inside of the with and end with parameters. So I don't necessarily need that dot there. Let's try it without the dot and see if it works. At this point, there's also a line down here that says application cut copy mode equals false. And there's a note here that says this is equivalent to the idea of hitting escape after you copy and paste something. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. Application cut copy mode, there it is on the IntelliSense, equals false. Oops. And at this point, let's test this. So I'm going to erase what I had done before. And I don't even need to select it because it has the range here in the code, so I can just select off of it. I'm going to come over here and click inside of this module. I'm going to click on Run, and it should copy this cell into this destination range, D4 through D12. Let's see if it works. Look at that, it worked. And there we have that exercise. Okay, and the next exercise here is exercise 3. And this says column D is the sum of B and C. Replace the formulas in column D with the values. So it wants us to turn on the recorder. And we will record a new macro. We'll call this one paste values. In this workbook, we'll click OK. And we're going to copy column D and paste special. So I'm going to select the cells, Control C, and I'm going to right click using my mouse, paste special, and the values option. Here's the values right there. Click OK. Notice the formulas are replaced with the actual values. And then I'm going to turn off the recorder. And let's look at the code. So in the code here I have range D4 to D12 select, selection copy, paste special, and it has a bunch of code. And I didn't hit escape before I ended my recorder. So this line right here is including hitting escape or getting rid of the flashy dot lines when you're pasting or just copying and pasting. And then let's modify that. And in this modification, the text is saying instead of actually making a selection for a particular range, let's make a generic selection. So let's use whatever is selected. That's what this is saying right here, with selection. So we're not actually going to use a specific range. We're just going to say whatever is selected when I run this macro, use that cell as my selection. So we're going to use selection.copy. Remember that with, I'm just taking out the with here. I'm putting that selection and I'm putting it down on this line, selection.copy. And then it says paste special. So I'm going to do selection, paste special, and then simply paste XL paste values. So all of this other code that comes with paste special is not actually needed. This is extra attributes or extra settings that are used in this case that the recorder puts in, and it's called bloated code. I believe the book talks about this. Yeah, there it is right there, bloated code. It's just being safe. It's just trying to cover all the bases. We actually don't need it. So I can come in here and I can delete that. And all I need here is selection copy. Whatever is selected when I run the macro, I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to turn around and paste special, just those values is what I'm going to paste. And that's all this is. So I can come back over here and let's try to run this. If I go backwards, this gives us the sum formulas for these cells. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select them first. Then I'm going to come over here and click inside this macro. And I'm going to run it. And I expect it to copy those cells and then to paste special right on top of those cells. So replacing the formula with the values. I'm going to click on run. And sure enough, there's the values that are inside those cells. Those are no longer formulas. And I'll manually hit escape because I didn't include that in here. But I could also put it in the code as well, right? Which is application.cut copy mode, which is right there, equals false. And we're good to go. I'll go ahead and save that as well. So what we've done is we've done the first 3 exercises here in the book. We've taken the recording macros file, downloaded it from Canvas, and we're simply running the recording macros and then changing the code to be a little bit more precise in our code, following the example in the book. I highly recommend to take advantage of the other 3 examples, 3 exercises here, and walking through each of them in the book.